It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to the official Superhero Slate review of Shazam, Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be, maybe not fun is the right word of a review, but I just feel like very ill-stressed, or not ill-stressed, unstressed to talk about this movie, because I feel like there's like nothing on the line in the way, right? You know, for the most part, you kind of right off the DC universe until kind of James Gunn kicks it back up and, you know, gets it rolling with his Superman movie eventually, right? You know, we don't know where this movie exactly is going to land. If you listen to our weekly news episodes, right, you know, kind of the box office return was going to be kind of the decider of how much of this franchise may or may not move forward. So, like, I don't know about you, Chris, but I just kind of like walked into the theater and I was just like, yeah, just give me what you got. You know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. I would say 3 words describe how I feel about this. I don't care. Like, literally, like, either way, good, bad. I am so ambivalent on this movie. We are going to discover how I feel as we kind of talk this out, if that makes any sense. And that's not a bad. That's not a bad thing. That's just like where I'm at. Like, I don't know if it's just mentally or like just with, like you said, like this is in like a very gray area of like does it matter? Does it not matter? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. We're gonna figure this out as we go.
I feel like this should be more like welcome to our Shazam Fury of the Gods like conversation. Yeah. Like usually we peg these as reviews or spoiler casts, and of course we'll put up the spoiler warning before we start talking about spoilers. But yeah, it was a very chill for me, a little inside baseball. You know, usually we try to go to these movies like on Thursday nights. We try to get in with like the A+ crowds, right, that are there to have a movie going experience, right? I think we both kind of let people know, like on the weekly news episodes the last couple weeks, we're like, oh, Shazam's coming out. Oh, we need to go buy our tickets. We both bought tickets to like a nearly empty theater when we bought them. I went on a Saturday morning. You went like a couple hours ago.
Let me flip your script here for you, Mike. I didn't even go. I watched the Cam version. I'm not even gonna lie to you right now,
Chris. Chris, this explains it. Yeah. I texted Chris like an hour ago. I was like, hey, I don't remember when your movie was. I know you said you got tickets for Sunday, because I will give Chris a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. This is his birthday weekend, right? He has things planned. He wants to celebrate, and as you can tell, he wasn't really looking to celebrate with a Shazam sequel, right?
I bought tickets for Thursday night originally. Things came up. I had to move them to Sunday, and kudos to the Cinemark app. Like, fantastic refund credit reapplication process.
Totally agree. I've had to do that a couple times through Cinemark. A+. And actually, I've really started to enjoy their, like, whatever their movie club is called. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I love getting the discount on the snacks. My tickets, I get, 1 free a month, and also I don't have to deal with any... Yeah, I don't have to deal with any of those online, like, bullshit fees, too. So, like, it's like, oh, if it says my matinee ticket's $9, it's $9. No, like, a bullshit added on to it. But anyway, I text Chris, like, an hour ago, like, hey, I don't know exactly when your movie was supposed to be for the day, but, I'm ready to record whenever you are. He texted me back, and he was just like, okay, the movie's wrapping up. I should be done soon. And I was like, wait a minute. He's supposed to be in a movie theater right now. But I was like, okay, it's a Sunday, though. You know, I will not pass judgment, because there might not be literally anyone around him. Lo and behold, this dude was just on his couch in his basement watching
I was going to tell you, and then I was like, I don't want to tell him. I want to save it for the episode and for the review. And I this is nothing against the movie. It just fell on a horrible weekend for me. And I was like, I'm not going to delay, because I know you went and saw this. I'm like, I'm not going to delay it. Let's just watch what we can. And get it out of the way so we can.
I feel like this is going to be a really funny segue as we go into the domestic box office. Okay, so your $9 wasn't gonna like break the records, right? It wasn't gonna tilt the seesaw either way, and I think even the director David F. Sandberg. I think his first name's David.
Yep, David Sandberg.
Yeah, he's even like quoted somewhere, but I think slightly out of context, that he kind of knew the movie wasn't going to do like amazing.
It was Reddit. They said someone said, "Hey, it was on a Reddit post saying, hey, numbers aren't good." Some guy was like, "Hey, man, we're out here rooting for you." It was a positive post that he tagged him in. Someone said, "Hey, you really probably, it's bold tagging him on the main post that's dragging him." And he came out, he's like, "Yep, yeah, we kind of saw this coming, but I got paid up front." So he's just like, he's like, whatever it does at the box office, it's out of his hands, right, as a director, and I understand that. He's like, it is what it is, and I understand either way we go. I did the best I could. So
yeah, I will say, before we get into like the general thoughts about the movie, I will say I was overall positive on the first film. I really liked it. I liked the characterization. I love the humor. It feels kind of very like early Marvel when it comes to like the quips and the tone, and that's not a bad thing. I feel like Marvel quippiness has kind of become like a descriptor of maybe like bad filmmaking over the years, but I still really like it, and that's what's drawn so many people to the theaters, because they just want to have a good time, right? So I feel like at home almost when I'm watching a Shazam movie. And also big ups to David F. Sandberg. We maybe even brought this up whenever we reviewed Shazam back in the day, but this dude is very online. He is like a millennial who is into social media and YouTube, and even back in his like horror movie making days, always putting behind the scene clips up online. I'm assuming he gets permission from the studios, but even I started following him on Twitter. I thought I already did. But I started following him on Twitter after Fury of the Gods, and like the entire weekend, nothing but behind the scenes clips he's been posting, like just him on set that day recording them like crumpling a bus from the inside, people walking around on stilts pretending to be monsters. So, whether you do or don't like this movie, I really like the director.
Yeah.
So, if the character doesn't move on, if the story doesn't move on to the franchise, I'm going to follow Sandberg throughout his career, because I like his vibe,
Yeah, I don't think he didn't write it. Did he write it?
No,
he did.
So.
Yeah, he didn't write it. And I'm gonna see if he wrote this. He didn't write the first one. Did he write the second one? No, he didn't write them. So I think he's able to kind of capture what I like. About the first one. To agree with you is it's like Marvel movies. It's aware when things are silly and don't make sense. Right. I'll never forget the end of that where the villain Savannah is monologuing, and Shazam's like, "I cannot hear you. I'm like blocks away in the air. Like, what are you saying?" And you're like, in real life, that's exactly what that would be, right? It's exactly, and I applaud them for calling that out and making it feel like that. So agreed. I don't think he I don't like I said, I don't blame him for anything. I think he does a great job, and like he's having a good time. The crew cast seem to be having a good time. Through both movies, they carried over, the Shazamily, as we call them, from the first to the second one, with that. But as you mentioned, the box office not hot. Currently around 30.5 million domestic. On that, which I think is down 40% over the original, as well, and it is nearing 35 million internationally. So total $65.5 million opening weekend for this movie, which I can't say that's I can't say it's quality related. I don't know who this movie's for, and that might be why I don't know who's going to it. Right, I know a lot of people caught the first one for the first time recently. So
I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because usually on the show, we kind of attribute these big box office records to general audiences, right? Going out to the theater, because there's only so many nerds, right, on the planet. Nerds alone are not going to make these records, right? But I think sometimes, at least I underestimate the power of just the influence of the kind of nerd comic book community, right? That kind of gets the wheels rolling on like hype trains, right? Because the people that are connected, our listeners are people that like to stay into the zeitgeist of superhero stuff, we all knew that this movie was kind of on the chopping block, right? You know, Black Adam totally just like shit the bed, right? And then you have a similar character with design the same way coming up a couple months later with another movie. And it's just like, what is going on here? I don't understand the narrative. Where's the theme? Where's this all coalescing? Like, just like 2 months ago, James Gunn did like a whole like video where he announced this whole new blue sky version of DC. So yeah, I think a lot of the general audiences don't internalize that, but you know, if you don't have like influencers out there or people making like fan art or doing like fan cams, right? You know, like they do like of Pedro Pascal. I don't see them doing that of like Zachary Levi, right? You know, you don't get this like extra multiplier, right? Getting the general audiences to theaters. So I think that contributes to it as well. But you know, we'll get into spoilers, and I think we'll talk about maybe the long tail of maybe what might or may happen to some of these characters. But Chris, I gotta know what did you think of spoiler free of Shazam: Fury of the Gods?
Spoiler free, it's all right. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna drag it out. I'm not gonna to sugar it up here. I mean, it's a continuation of the first one. Like, I think if you've not seen the first one, you need to watch it to get this, right? Because it goes hard and fast right out the gate. But what I think is where the story again falls apart is this. I've seen so many pieces of this movie in other movies done better that I just can't, like, I was just like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, something else did it better, right? Like, you know, we'll get the spoilers. The opening scene kind of sets the tone for the movie. I'm like, we have seen this before in a movie that did better. I will tell you, Black Panther did that same scene, Mike, the opening scene, right? And did it better, right? So I'm like, okay, well, maybe, you know, it feels like it's mix and match with this, and I just couldn't really. I'm not jiving with it, I'm not jiving against it. I'm like, yeah, this is fine. Like, this would live, I think, in the middle of the DC EU roadmap if I had to put it on a roadmap, right? For that. There are some, you know, I think the cast of characters is great. A lot of good actors. I would say what I missed the most and from the first one, this is a Zachary Levi movie. The other one had a nice mix of is his name Asher Angel, right? Is that the kid actor's name?
Billy Batson.
Right, but still the actor. Like, it had a mix of those two, and this is very much like, we've already done the kid movie, so now we're doing everyone is staying in their superpowered form for the whole movie. So that's not necessarily a complaint. It's just something I noticed when I was watching. I'm like, no, they've gotten around skirting around child actor laws by literally just having them be in their Shazamily forms for most of the movie. So yeah, overall, like I said, I'm not going to drag on about it. I'd rather just get into spoilers because it's a conversation, right? Like you mentioned, hard to review this movie, but let's have a talk about it. So I just say right down the middle, just like, yeah, I'm ambivalent. Either way I go. So, yeah. What about you, Mike? How are you feeling since you actually spent money on it?
Yeah, exactly. I went to the theater. I had a positive time with the first one, and I would say this one comes pretty close to the experience I had the first time around. You know, I think the biggest strength when it comes to this is the cast and the characters, right? I love the interaction between the family, when the family, you know, starts bickering and when they're coming up against odds. There's an early set piece in the film where all of the Shazamily kind of comes together to save the day, and I just really felt like it was firing off on all cylinders. I was like, oh wow, look at this. You have like a big superpowered superhero group just going out there trying to stop this disaster from unfolding, and I was like, this is great. I wish there was a little bit more of that in the movie going forward, because there's a MacGuffin in this film that kind of takes and gives powers away, and I'll leave it at that. And you're kind of like following that throughout the acts of the film, and it starts to get a little tiring, where I was just like, okay, let's just go back to the status quo that we set at the beginning of the film, because that's where I was having a lot of fun, and we never really quite got back there. But overall, I would say this movie was pretty well crafted for a sequel. Usually sequels can be pretty dicey out there in the superhero world. You don't really know exactly what you're going to get. So I wouldn't necessarily say they were playing it safe with this film. They definitely threw more at it. But I do agree with you in a sense, Chris, where there are parts of this film where you're just like, oh, I've seen this done more creatively and others. But I think they just got really lucky that the cast is a good enough glue and substructure to kind of hold it together and entertain me. But like I said, I went in with low to medium expectations on a Saturday morning with a pretty empty theater, just chilling in the back row with my wife eating popcorn, not a whole lot on the line, right? Compared to the last movie reviewed, Ant-Man Quantumania, where they're introducing this big super baddie for the first time. It's the third Ant-Man movie. All these characters and speculation that we've been dialing in on every trailer. And so overall a different movie-going experience. But I would say it was positive, but I'll definitely be able to complain about things, right? Yeah. To sum it all up, I would just, I could just read my tweet that I sent to James Gunn after the movie was over, because I knew that kind of public perception was going to be what makes or breaks this movie, right? If we're going to be lucky enough to get another one. So I just said, Dear James Gunn, I very much like the new Shazam movie and hope you let David F. Sandberg make another one, lightning emoji. So I don't think he saw my tweet, and I just realized I had a typo in it after reading it. Corrected it for everyone here in the audience. So that is exactly how Twitter goes.
You got to pay to edit that. So
no, I'm not paying it. It's there.
Oh, okay.
So I had an overall positive time. But Chris, let's get into it. Yeah, let's talk about spoilers. Flash the spoiler warning.
Yeah, I'm not flashing anything. I'm just putting a time code here in the notes. People don't think we're getting too fancy this weekend.
Just visually imagine that red siren emoji. That's what I always picture.
Yeah, Wii U. So yes, we are now in spoiler territory. It's marked. If you've gone this far, back up. I would say, So get into this. Spoilers. Where do you want to start? I'll let you start.
I mean, I think I'll just start at what I was talking about before with those the MacGuffin staff, right? I thought it was cool that they did tie it back to the first movie, to this magical artifact that he just kind of offhandedly breaks over his knee. I thought that was kind of clever, the thing that kind of moves the movie forward. That's kind of the crux of everything, right? But it did become a little bit of a pain, like tracking who did and didn't have powers and when they were going to get them back. And I was slightly disappointed at the end of the movie. They didn't get all of their powers back at the same time to go punch the dragon simultaneously, right? I know narratively you wanted Billy to do the sacrifice move, but come on, give me the Shazamily back.
I don't need an Avengers moment. I disagree. I'm glad they actually kind of stuck to that a little bit. I would say, in that regard, the biggest thing is hey, I was like, this is a bold movie. They killed the main kid, right? They've offed him, whatever, and then they're like, actually, that Wonder Woman cameo we faked you out on earlier is real now. So here with Wonder Woman touching the staff, throwing it in the ground, we can resurrect dead people now. And I'm like, well, what can't you do in this universe within the last 3 minutes? So, sorry to jump ahead to that, but I think the staff is just, what can't this motherfucker do? It turned a god to human.
Let's just talk about the Wonder Woman thing, because I feel like that might be the end credit scenes or the very end of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe the only thing that persists out of this movie, right? If the box office really determines that we're not going to get a third one, right? The public is not going to get butts and seats to see a third Shazam movie. We might only see Zachary Levi continue, and the evil caterpillar worm guy, possibly that might just be it.
Mr. Mind.
But I thought
the Wonder Woman thing was fun. But we'll talk about that.
I liked it too, but the Wonder Woman thing for me was a little disappointing in a sense of it was spoiled for me, right? I accidentally stumbled across Fury of the Gods TV spot, I think just when I was watching YouTube, and they show you within 4 frames Gal Gadot is in this movie as Wonder Woman. I was like, come on! I was just 2 days away from seeing this movie, and the TV spot, because they knew, right? That's exactly what TV spots are for. That's the last ditch effort to be like, this movie is tracking poorly. What are we going to do to get people to buy tickets? I don't care if it's a fun reveal that Gal Gadot's at the very end of this movie. You put her in the goddamn trailer now. I need tickets sold.
Well, I don't even if they did that, I still think it felt weird and out of place. Even if they hadn't spoiled it, it felt weird and out of place, right?
Oh, I agree.
She showed up in a pose like I'm like, oh, it's one of those things where the person shows up at the last minute and they just walk in, do a thing, and then walk away. I'm like, God damn.
No, I totally agree. I felt it felt out of place. I actually liked the first kind of quote-unquote Wonder Woman moment because it kind of tied in to the end of the first Shazam movie where you only get to see like the bottom 3/4 of Superman. Yeah. And then they're kind of playing with the audience again of just like, oh, he's quote-unquote on a date with Wonder Woman. It ends up actually being a dream,
in Paris,
right?
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh, they're only showing her from the neck down. This is really, really funny. They're doing the same thing that they did with Superman. But I knew that she was supposed to be in the movie, so I just kept waiting for the camera to pan around and show her face. But maybe that actually worked out even better for me because they put the wizard's head on it. And I thought that moment was really funny for me.
Well, I agree. I 100% agree with that. I would say the other weird moment is when the wizard shows up at the end again, and he's all like,
he's got the drip.
He's got the drip. Regular clothes. You're like, yeah, this is what he looks like on the normal, I bet, like kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, if they're looking to save on money for the next movie, right? Like, look, we don't need to get prosthetics or wigs or any makeup for the wizard anymore. He can just show up as he is, and he'll be fine in his normal clothes.
I mean, honestly, I think if there was a magically, pun intended, a third movie, I would love to see him still flex wizard powers, right?
Yeah.
In his just like GQ model, like posing and stuff, like flapping his like little trench coat behind him, shooting magic. That would look sick to me.
Yeah. I think it'd be funny. I do think there will be a third movie, Mike. And the only reason I have two reasons behind this, right? Okay. Because this movie has James Gunn and Peter Safran's fingerprints on it. So first is this movie was a Peter Safran production, right? 100%. And my hope would be that it would literally be a Shazam versus Black Adam movie, right? I think that would be interesting. More like the most interesting thing we could do for 3 is that 100%. However, on the other side, James Gunn's fingerprints on this because his wife is in it. They did the two people from Peacemaker, Amelia Harcourt and I forget his name, the guy's name. Meeting.
I don't know the
handlers
guy.
Yeah, the handlers from Peacemaker, who she was also at the end of Black Adam, right? Last time we saw her in Black Adam, then this she was.
Oh
at the end of both
she's in that little like prison thing.
Yes, absolutely. So I think they could, they maybe didn't announce it. Maybe deals aren't through. Maybe The Rock's, still butthurt, and that's why he won't do fast movies. Maybe he won't do this. I don't know. But I think they're trying to push for a third Shazam movie with Black Adam at the end of that. But
I mean, if we do drill into that, post-credit scene, right? Which I do think it's kind of funny because it's like one of the unforeseen circumstances of the Walking Dead show, right, going on for so long is we all intimately know what Atlanta and Georgia, the surrounding areas, look like, right? Yep. So when they go see him at like an old gas station, like shooting bottles with like little lightning bolts, I'm like, oh, this looks like a location that they shot an episode of like The Walking Dead in, right? Yep. They're just somewhere in like rural Atlanta. So I thought, I was like, wow, he's in Philly. What's he doing out in the middle of nowhere?
It kind of reminded me of the back half of Peacemaker, right? Whenever they're out in the woods running from the things. But the
exactly.
last in credit scene I think is the most meta / funny is they bring back again the exact same scene from in credit scene from Shazam 1 with Dr. Sivana writing on the cell and the little worm Mr. Mind showing up, right? And he's like I've been waiting for 2 years, I'm an old man now, like I'm almost 60. What are we gonna do here? He's like, I can't walk here very fast. I'm a worm. Like, get over it. And he's like, but first I need to go do one more thing, and scurries off. I'm like, This is exactly like, if they didn't reference that scene before, people will probably be like, well, why did you put that in there ever again? So I feel like this was a fun little nod to that. Like, yeah, we know we didn't do anything with Dr. Savant and the Worm, but here's a small end credit scene to poke fun at it and be very meta.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of like, this whole movie's meta, right? The kids are making references, movie references and song references throughout the whole thing. So I thought I think it's
Captain
fun.
Marvel references, Avengers references
Avengers
directly in the movie.
Absolutely.
But I mean, they do name drop the Justice Society, which correct me if I'm wrong. That's the same society that's in Black Adam, right?
That's
With
Hawkman. Yeah,
and-
that's that one. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So, that was kind of the only positive thing that, we hear people talk about with Black Adam, right? So that could still come to fruition, right? Like, I think there's a much higher chance that the character of Shazam, Zachary Levi, continues more than them possibly getting a third movie, right? Because then at least, you don't have to admit failure, right? You still created a character that persists out of the franchise, and you could even like do some mental gymnastics and say like, oh well, even like Marvel's done that, stop like a run of like movie franchise, but keep the character going. So I would think that is a high possibility. But overall, when it comes to just DC in general, like I know Marvel is moving towards like this kind of multiversal incursion where things could possibly reset. But I would say the exact same thing is on the table for DC, at some point in time, right? A lot of these like fractured Elseworlds will get explained, maybe possibly in the Flash movie coming up or something. So if we are definitively now saying that Shazam exists kind of in the Peacemaker universe, right? The Peacemaker universe we know is continuing on, so does that mean James Gunn's Superman is more likely to live in the Peacemaker universe? I don't know.
Well, that's hard because
they've already name dropped Superman, right?
Well, they even put Henry Cavill in Black Adam, which had Waller and Amelia Harcourt in it. Like in that Justice Society, right? Superman was in this. "Quote unquote" Superman was at the beginning of this one, so it's hard. It's very hard to say at this point. Like, what will this work? But as if the universe comes together, like the one of the more contrived story points in this that I really didn't care for is that he thinks that this family that he took forever last movie to accept and come to love is going to kick him out when he turns 18. Yeah, and I was like, we just went through this. The whole point, at one point my wife was like, he's gonna call her mom. I'm like, yeah, I know, because she shook her head disappointingly or sadly at the beginning of the movie to one. I'm like, there's a lot of setup and payoffs, but like I didn't feel like his worries were actually really worries in this movie. It just kind of jumped into it and went. I'm like, all right, I'll believe him, it's fine, but like you didn't earn it. Like you're just telling me these things.
I appreciate the storyline, and actually I thought it was a fresh take, right? Because we've seen so many like origin stories of heroes and their like depressing childhood, right? And I feel like Billy Batson is really the only one that's leaned into what's it like not to be an orphan, but to also try to find that family as a kid, because we always see these heroes when they grow up and they're adults and they've already gone through all of that trauma, right? So I like kind of like, we were still in it. But I totally agree. It does kind of feel like tacked on. Like it happens at the very beginning of the movie, aging out. They touch on it briefly with one scene, and then again at the very end. It just felt like the internal conflict was really more about trying to keep the siblings together, not about him aging out. And then also, I couldn't... This is the weird thing about like adapting a comic book, right? You can keep Billy Batson a kid forever in the comics, but eventually the actor grows up, and I was like, oh crap, this kid in the movie is almost 18, and I'm sure the actor is much older than that, right? But I was like, well, what's going to happen if they make a third one? He's going to be like 21, and is he going to start looking like, did he have to morph his face to look like a young Zachary Levi, or are we just assuming Shazam is not him grown up? It's just like an alternate look of a god or something.
So I will tell you, there's a comic book James Gunn was reading, Kingdom Come. Is right? You've heard of this comic book, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. In that, one of the villains keeps an adult Shazam with him. And come to find out, it's not really Shazam. It's just Billy Batson grown up, and he looks like Shazam. So it is them growing up. And I will say, in this movie, it kind of proves that, because his older sister is the only character to not get a different actress.
And
I was like,
it's
like, okay, that's fine.
And it is kind of funny because like they do have to kind of cleverly like pivot the story around, okay, the parents are watching news broadcasts, right? And they can't recognize their daughter right there on the screen in uniform.
One. Yeah, the exact identical one.
So they pretty much had to learn in this movie that their kids were superheroes because there's no way they could keep that thread into another movie.
Yeah. So I looked it up because I forgot. The first movie said he was 14. He didn't act like I felt like he was much older, right? Like Hollywood 14, which feels like 17.
And if the franchise did go forward, Zachary Levi is going to have to tone it down a little bit because Billy Batson's 17, but Zachary Levi in this movie is acting like he's still 14 or 13. So, like, I'm not seeing a lot of the overlap there. It's almost like he regresses as he gets older.
Well, he kept the Shazam 1 act with, but I don't know. We didn't get any growth of the character, right? Like, is he just like I would say the one thing we didn't get any Ash or Angel, Billy Batson, like 4 scenes total, right, of him in this movie. I'm like, I was like, oh, that's kind of rough. But his brother, was in his human form more, and that was interesting.
His brother's hilarious. He's a scene stealer for sure. So I was actually happy whenever he was depowered because I was like, I love his like bumbling, just silliness. When he gets, I think the one of the single funniest things in the movie is when he gets thrown in the cell with like the wizard, and he was like, things were okay until, I don't remember the exact line, but like things were like bad, but they've got worse, like, and he points at him like when you got here. I don't remember exactly how the line was, but it was really fucking funny. Yeah. And so I love that portrayal of the kid. It was just hilarious. So that goes around to like a positive thing is I really, really like this cast, but I will go ahead and say the 3 villains of the movie I could do without them. I mean, I feel like you could I don't think Helen Mirren is exactly flexing, any sort of like acting chops, and I don't think she needs to like in this movie necessarily.
Yeah, for like the one, like all of them are very, I would say, well, maybe the girls not, but like they're all very one-sided portrayals of like, kind of like how I imagine a villain in a Wonder Woman movie would be, right? Like these power people, like Helen Mirren's like, oh, I'm the oldest sister, I'm going to do the charge, and like obviously the middle one, Lucy Liu's going to betray everybody. We can all see this coming. But it was funny when she was reading off the letter from Steve the Pin, one of the funniest additions to this universe. Great. Where he's just literally writing out everything they say, even like the side comments, because he doesn't know not to write those. Her reading that letter was pretty entertaining. I'm like, I know she's reading off a piece of paper, but it was still pretty funny to hear just like keep her regality while reading that, and I was like, that's pretty good. Lucy Liu, not so much. Didn't really bring a whole lot to the table. I'm gonna be honest with you, as the middle sister, I guess, the one who sows chaos. And I was like, this is chaos. Chaos is the ability from the Umbrella Academy sister, where she whispers things in your ear and you have to do them. Or say them.
I guess I mean, they didn't really feel overall that menacing, just because it was kind of hard for me to determine the stakes of everything, right? Because I was like, okay, so Philly's in damage, but it's also like in a bubble, but they're not trying to destroy it. But then they do plant an apple and they're gonna terraform it. But is it just gonna be Philly, or is it gonna be worldwide? Yeah. And then they set up at the beginning of the movie how they're like the Fiasco 5 or something like that. And
the Philly Fiasco.
Philly Fiasco or something like that. They're just like an ill-formed group doing more harm than good. And then like the third act, they are just absolutely obliterating the city. Yeah. Like going into like big sky rises, right? And I'm just like, well, this isn't necessarily helping this image. So they tried to pivot into the city maybe liking Captain Sparklefingers again, with like a couple people on a sidewalk going like, yeah, get that dragon or something. I was like, all this feels very nebulous. I don't really know what the stakes are here. I'm just having fun watching them making funny quips and saying like, taste the rainbow, mother, and then cutting to the next scene before you get to see a little girl say fuck her. I found that pretty funny.
I did enjoy their take on rainbows, right? He's like, the wizard is terrified of unicorns. Or not rainbows, unicorns. I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny, because normally you think rainbows or unicorns with rainbows and sparkles and all this other funny stuff. So like, these are like, look like, my wife said they look like Thestrals from like in the Harry Potter universe with a horn on their head. I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
So I mean, I did like that part mostly, right? But I did not really understand it. Like, okay, you can go ahead and tell me that these monsters are afraid of unicorns. I think that's, it's a funny juxtaposition because we think of them as regal, beautiful creatures, right? But when the tree is giving birth to these monsters, why would it also give birth to a creature that is going to fight the other creatures? It just kind of felt like a weird, like, why would the tree make the poison and the antidote, right?
Well, the tree to me was creating a habitat of what what the world was before it was destroyed or whatever, right? Like, good or bad, this is an ecosystem, whether the creatures fight or live or whatever, right? But it seemed like the unicorns were like, we're gonna stick to ourselves, it's fine. But like, it seemed like I had to extrapolate. It's creating an ecosystem in this terrarium that was made by magic.
The audience had to do maybe a little too much heavy lifting for that.
Because those creatures, I'm like, am I supposed to understand that these creatures grew up in this Greek gods? Like, yes, they're Greek creatures, but like the end credits show this awesome script of all these creatures and names, and I'm like, where was this at earlier? Like, this would be fun for them. Like, they're researching Greece and Greek mythology, and like, oh my gosh, look at all these crazy creatures. I sure hope we don't have to, fight these.
I mean, I know we're a little split on this when it comes to the first movie, where I was a little bit more into the those different like sins coming to life. I liked the creature design overall. I know you were
they're great.
You were the other direction on it, and that's fine. We can have our own opinions. But I did like the creature design in this movie too, and I got to imagine it. I hope maybe David F. Sandberg is maybe kind of the common denominator there, since he comes from like a horror movie background. 'Cause some of those things were like really creepy, like that bat-winged creature. I was harpies, like, this is almost like it doesn't fit into this Shazam world in like a good way, because I was like, this is fucking terrifying.
Well, the Chimera comes out with the scorpion tail, like kills the woman. I'm like, there's a lot of death in this. Like, they actually killed people. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he was not afraid to kind of just like go at it. He murdered himself in it as well. If you're not familiar with what he looks like,
I thought he was the biker. Or
he was wearing like a black t-shirt. He's kind of got like salt and peppery hair, and there's a scene where like one of those, I guess, harpies with the wings, right? Like pick him up at his shoulders.
Oh, that was him.
And like throw him off into the distance or whatever.
I swear he was the guy on the moped when the wall like passed through him. It looked just like him.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It could have been. He could have played two roles. He's the director. He can put himself wherever he wants.
That's how they reduced the budget. Putting himself.
I mean, and I think maybe like kind of like the last maybe big thing that we haven't talked about creature-wise would be the dragon. Yeah. Dragon was overwhelming to me. Underwhelming to me for sure. They even like kind of joke like, oh, why is this dragon made of wood? And I guess we're supposed to assume it's like born from the tree or something like that. I thought maybe that would come up, like, oh, we got to peel back like the bark to get to like, a vulnerable area in the dragon, and it's not a functional part of it existing, so I don't understand why it had to be a wooden dragon.
Well, I think there's probably some history in Greece, like wooden dragons, right? In Greek history, right? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But like his power was that he had the ability to paralyze everyone with fear until he could eat them. And he only used it once. I was like, I thought this guy was going to use it more than that, like more than like the twice on, not Billy, Freddy, right? Once in the pit and then once again. At the end where you can, Freddy's, he can fight the chaos and he can fight the fear, and that's cool. I mean, he stood on his own, but overall the dragons just kind of There's a lot of choppy green screen, like when they're all flying and like the dragons flying. Like, did you get that feel as well? Like, I was like, they're flying thing, they just haven't nailed it yet. It's like almost there, but not quite all the way.
I mean, this kind of maybe ties a little bit back to, I think maybe last week on our normal news episode, I was kind of just saying, in general, for me personally, I feel like Hollywood, bigger budget movies have kind of crossed a threshold for me, right? Where the special effects are good enough for me in a way. Yeah, I can still spot definitely like a green screen scene and like kind of where the seams are, but it doesn't take me out of the experience. No. Same thing for this movie, right? I could spot some scenes where it's just like, okay, they were trying their best. You know, the VFX team was definitely you know, on a crunch to get this scene done, but you know, it didn't take me out of the movie overall.
I think to me it was just flying. Like I think the rest of the movie looks great. It's the flying scenes, like when they're floating in front of like the cityscape, like as the Shazamily, or like whenever they were flying. I'm like, something about this is not jiving with me, you know, for the flying scenes. Everything else looked great. I really think the rest of it looked pretty fantastic. One of my favorite, there are two scenes. One I want to talk about. One where he at the end, he's firing the lightning off while he's floating, and it's all hitting the staff back and forth, right? This magic staff that can do anything, by the way. If you want something done or undone, the staff will do it. They use lighting, like it looked like real lighting on Zachary Levi to like flash the lightning bolts on him, and I'm like, that looks really cool. That's practical effects through and through, 100%. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, but, and speaking, oh no, go ahead, finish.
The other one was the worst practical effect I've seen when the dragon came through the mom's bed. When the dragon came at their house, like the dragon's behind us, and like they used a physical dragon's head to come like bite the bed in half, and then it
was like a very brief.
Then transitions to the digital. I'm like, you built a real dragon for this like 3 seconds.
I'm glad that you spotted it too, because I almost thought like I didn't even see it. But no, you're right. There was like a very brief, like maybe not even a second, like maybe 20 frames where you do see like a physical dragon head, and then it cuts to CG. So, I mean, I can respect the filmmaking decision to do something practical, but it sounds like it probably didn't turn out exactly how they wanted it to look.
The juxtaposition really, I think, threw me off, right? Like if they would have used it like a second more, but like literally it bites the bed, like old classic, like 80s, 90s, like, you know, horror, real life horror, and then it cuts to where the dragon's like literally just bursting out of this house. And like, oh, that's not what he was doing a second ago. He just bit the bed. Like, you know, they didn't have enough time to get out of here, but it's fine. I'm not nitpicking it. It's just I applaud them for doing this a little bit more.
Maybe you can explain to me how the final battle worked. He looks at the staff and he says, oh, it's like a battery. I'm going to like overload it. Yep. But it wasn't really clear to me exactly what was going on. So he was like shooting lightning at the dome, and it was kind of like reflecting back and sometimes hitting the staff, but sometimes not. And then the fire would like breathe like blue fire on it, and then it would go into the staff, but sometimes it looked like it wasn't. So like it just wasn't clear. I guess what he was trying to do was charge the staff up enough to where he could finally hit the dragon with it, and it would actually kill it. But I was like, I don't like this. Whatever this is not clever to me.
So how he did it, 100%. You're right. You have to overcharge the staff, and that's why he yelled Shazam at the end, right, to get that final lightning bolt on it, and like when the dragon and the tree hit and all blew up together. But what I think was earlier on when he first hit the dome, he used lightning and it reflected back to the building, right? And this is a reflection. He did it so she wouldn't see what he was doing. I think if he just sat there and charged it up, he wouldn't be able to hit the timing right to blow them up at the same time. And it's not explained very well, but that's 100% what it was. When
and
you
I
watch
feel
it.
I feel like too, even if you got like 5 or a dozen of the best filmmakers that ever existed in a room to figure out, well, how do we make this visually like work? I think the idea itself is just like flawed, right? You know, I think there just should have been a more clever way. And that's kind of like one of my icks, right? One of my pet peeves when it comes to a movie, you know, like what's going to be your final, you know, triumphant moment that your character achieves to win over the bad guy? Is it going to be a mental block that they get over and finally push past in order to defeat the villain? Is it going to be a clever trick? And to me, the trick was just not clever enough. So that was a little unfortunate to me. But it is funny. It is interesting that we've been, you know, talking about this movie for about, you know, 40 minutes now. But overall, I still had a good time, right? You know, I think just at its core, the character and the family dynamics still work for me, even though there was some things that we just didn't jive with too much. And I was almost worried, Chris, that you were going to go the totally opposite direction, because I know that you were just kind of like very meh on the first one for the most part. It didn't really offend your sensibilities in any way.
I think they're both the same. I think that it's both the same to me. Like, I think how you feel about the first one's kind of how you're going to feel here, right?
And that is pretty funny, because that's exactly what I said as well. But I was just like, ooh, if this definitely, I would say, is not going in the right direction, maybe to convince somebody that was, meh on it. But it seems like consistency through and through for the first and second Shazam movie. I would go and buy tickets for a third one. It seems like you're a little bit more optimistic that there might be a third one.
I think
me a little less so.
If they do a third one, it has to be something, with stakes. By the end of this, like, I was like, oh, if they kill him, or there's something different, like maybe he maybe you come to find out he is reborn in like a Valhalla state or something like that, like another god's world, like he's reborn.
Yeah,
would have been great, but they didn't leave him dead. They were like, anything can be brought back to life. Nothing is permanent in this world, and I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks.
Or I thought maybe the kind of the double-edged sword of maybe him coming back to life, as he could never go back to being Billy Batson. He would be stuck as the Shazam character, and that would maybe kind of be a clever way to, like, don't need two actors anymore for the character. You just need one, kind of simplify the role a bit. Yeah. But yeah, we didn't talk too much about the Wonder Woman scene at the very end. There was some behind the scene pictures where the body double who did the dream sequence was there filming that scene, and some people thought maybe they deep faked her, which that was not the case. It was just they were shooting coverage.
Well, they only used the body double for the other one. David Sandberg said he directed her remotely for that scene.
It was a little bit of both, because they had to shoot the whole family, and they needed basically somebody to stand in as Wonder Woman. Yeah, and so they had that same actress come in.
He did say that was in the script from day one, so that was good to know. Like, that wasn't. It feels like an add-on, but according to him, it wasn't.
But you know what? I mean, I don't want to say I hate to do this, because the marketplace out there is competitive, so you have to compete with the other superhero franchise. You know what Marvel would have done? Wonder Woman would have been in this movie at the very first act, right? She would have, either been delivering exposition, or she would have helped the heroes move along, or it would have been kind of like, maybe like an Iron Man, Spider-Man Homecoming situation where, Tony Stark's not in the whole movie, but he's in parts of it, right? That's what a real synergized, like, franchise cinematic universe would have done, not just throw her in at the very end.
Well, essentially, she is full of knowledge and information about this world, these god worlds, right? Absolutely. Instead, they got Steve, the pen who doesn't talk, to do all the exposition for us. But again, Marvel would have literally paid an actor to come in and be like, no, we need who knows this? We need to find a door to Wonder Woman and use a door to the door thing was weird. Is that new? Was the door thing?
No, I think if I remember right, there was something like that in the last.
I love Monsters
movie.
Inc., but like this was a little too far for me.
Yeah, there was something like that in the last movie. But yeah, no, if this would have been a Marvel movie, Wonder Woman would have been in the movie, and they could have put her on the poster, right? Yeah. It would have been a whole thing. There would have been at least a brief action sequence where Wonder Woman and Shazam are punching people back and forth, right? That would have been what sold your movie and got the box office going. But
they're passing the lightning bolt back and forth, like because obviously she's the daughter of Zeus.
She reflects it with her shield, or catches the lightning with her lasso, and then it's a lightning charged lasso. But I get it though, right?
Yeah.
This could have been the first draft of the script, right? Yeah. And but. Well, it's like a no-brainer. We're bringing in these other, gods, but, they
were like, hey,
producers getting away.
Your budget is not going to afford Gal Gadot. I don't care what you want. Your budget is not going to afford it. So.
Yeah, or they're just like, oh, it's still in talks with, Patty Jenkins. We don't know how this is going to go. It's going to be best if you just kind of leave it tacked on. So there could have been, avenues where that could have happened. So I won't put that wholly on the people that created the movie. Yeah.
But, yeah, overall, like I said, it's fine. Like I'm not offended either way. If you're into it, that's cool. If not, that's cool. There's some things I think it could have improved to help build the story a little better, or at least been more unique, or taken those things it was copying and done better. But overall, not really too upset. But for people who don't know, the beginning of this movie, these two warrior dressed people walk in and steal this magic sword and walk out with it, right? Like killing everybody. I'm like, that's exactly what they did in Black Panther. It's exactly what he did. He's like, I want this. And that's what these two like people did. I'm like, oh, this is very similar all around.
Yeah, also though, like I would say it's not necessarily an original take on it either, because like villains break into museums all the time in movies, right? And in Black Panther, it makes story sense, right? It has like cultural significance, and it also has like you're also kind of doing the you're kind of skewering real life as well, because like, oh no, this also happens in the world that I live in, and I'm just in a movie theater watching it where you stake artifacts where like, so you empathize with the character too. But I'm like, who are these people? Like, okay, and they're just turning people into sand.
Can I ask you one question? This movie supposedly takes place 4 years after the first one, right? Almost 3.5, 4 years, right?
Yeah, I guess somewhere in that.
What took them so long to get to Earth to find the staff?
Yeah, I feel like with this a scene we really needed, right, was start the movie right at the scene where he like breaks the staff, right? Because then you're just like, wait, whoa, this is like kind of cool. This is the movie that I just like, theoretically just finished watching, right?
And then they're looking
breaks
for
it, and then cut from there to this magical world, and like, our villains are just like, kind of wasting away, or just like bored out of their mind, or just laying in a throne room, and then all of a sudden they see the shield maybe start to slowly weaken or crack, or start to flake off or something, and then okay.
I'd go even less, in your face about it. I would say like the sisters are bickering, right? Because they always bickered. And one of them starts to use her powers for the first time in a millennia, right? Like, and that's the revelation. Like, oh, actually, I can do this again. What happened? Because I think the Anne character found Freddy way too fast and was like, they found the staff way too fast. They found Freddy way too fast. I'm like, how do these people know what's going on here so quickly? But anyway, I'm not hating it either way. I was just curious, making sure. I was like, this movie takes place a lot later than usual, right? Like, it's not like that soon, but oh well. Anyway, Mike, we got another episode to do. We got our regular scheduled news episode, but if people know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, buddy?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you doing totally legal activities?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, look, they have my money. Cinemark has my money. It will get spent, by the way. We'll talk more about that in a regular show. But if people want to find me, they can find me on Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram, Valdan87. People know about the show where we have our weekly news episode about superhero news and stuff. And like last week, again, people, an entire timeline of things coming. Where can they find all that good stuff at?
Yeah, that's superheroslate.com. That is the headquarters for Superhero Slate. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts. Head on over to the website, too. We have an awesome upcoming release calendar, so you can kind of see all the things that we're going to be talking about on the show for the next couple of years, which, wow, it sounds crazy to say, projecting the podcast that far out into the future. They keep making these movies, so we'll keep talking about them.
We are renewed, yeah.
Yeah. What is next, Chris? What's next on the agenda for reviews?
So if we want to do Super Mario Brothers, I would say that would be next.
That's the next one.
Dungeons and Dragons is on my horizon as well. I would say movie wise would be Guardians of the Galaxy if we're doing superhero only movies. So we are in a nice release window for a couple months here.
Yeah, go to the movies, folks. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Please reach out. Let us know, how did you watch Shazam? Did you like it? Did you not? Do you think there should be a third one? What are the odds of the character continuing? Let us know. We love hearing from you. And if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.